Right, I am back after a bit of a weekend away. Back up in the loft. So it's going okay. I've got quite a bit to do now. I've got the new harness thing for my belt, which is pretty comfortable. So yeah, I'll be wearing that from now on, hopefully. I need to be putting down some netting. I'm going to walk over. The water tank is just refilling, so that's what that water noise is. I haven't got a leak. And what I've got to do is put down this netting basically in order to string it across all of the joists, so it kind of goes down and in and up, down and in and up, like that all the way along, and basically provide support so that the insulation which is sitting, let me see if you can see it, so that insulation up there can now be brought back in. That was the insulation that was down on the flooring before. So what we wanted to do is save it, because it's perfectly good fiberglass insulation. You saw us rolling that all up in one of the previous videos. We've saved it all in there. We can put this netting down. Once we've done that, we can then bring the insulation back in. I have pre-drilled holes that you will see all along here, holes like this. So I measured down and I've measured up to make sure that I'm within tolerance for part P of the regs for electrical cabling, so I can then put the netting in, put the insulation in, but then run the cabling, tacking it along here for the ring main that will go around. So I've started, I don't know if you can see this, I've started putting in some extra support joists here so that I can run some 2x4s along here. They can bear down on that. And then I can run, so I can infill with insulation here, overboard with insulation, plasterboard. So that's what I'm doing now. So my next job is to run the netting in between all of these joists, so that I can then bring the insulation back in and hopefully stop it being quite so cold before winter really kicks in. Sorry about the lighting, it's a little bit dark in here. So I'm doing the netting and it's all okay. The netting's going in fine. These bump staplers, hammer staplers, whatever you want to call them, are not that great for this. I think you'd be much better off with one of those handheld staple things that you know, like you have at your school, that your teacher used to use to put up bits on the board. The problem with these bump staplers is when you're hammering them, it's very, very easy to miss the netting, which I know sounds silly, but if you look how many staples there are along that row, and only one of them is actually caught on there. It's really easy to hammer in between these squares and just miss, which is a waste of staples, highly frustrating, and just a general waste of time. On top of that, because of the hammer action of this bit moving backwards and forwards, I keep snagging the netting in here, which then rips or tears or kind of pulls the netting out of shape. So I wouldn't use one of those. I would get one of those handheld staple guns that you can literally kind of fire staples across the room, because I think you've got a lot more control, rather than, you know, you can see up there's a big gaping hole in that net where it's just snagged. Trying to get it in the corner is an absolute nightmare. So word to the wise, bump stapler is great for felt on the outside, and for other applications it is not great for netting for your insulation. I have been at this for an hour and a half now, and this is all I have managed to achieve. 1, 2, all the way along there and all the way along there. This thing is so infuriating. Like, I hate it now. I just hate this thing. It was so helpful with that felt, so helpful, and so unhelpful with this. I'm wasting staples and time and energy and effort left, right and centre. And it's coming out scruffy as well, because it grabs and it snags and it pulls and all sorts of stupid things. So Amazon Prime has come to the rescue. £13 or something for a staple gun that will turn up tomorrow. So I think I'm going to call it on this part of the job, because I'm just losing the will to live. I may drop some insulation down here and just stick a few floorboards down just so I feel like I've done something else, but I don't even know if that's worth it, to be honest. It's just driving me crazy. So yeah, a bit of a frustrating day. I'm going to go and find other jobs to do. Process of moving all this chipboard now. This is the flooring, tongue and groove chipboard, 2.4 meters by 600, so they're half widths. These suckers are really heavy. I was doing 2 at a time, but my shoulders are knackered, so I'm going to go down to 1 at a time and lift them up. My wife is in the loft. I'm sliding them up to her and she pulls them in because she's a beast. Yep. You got it?
Yeah.
Okay. We've cleared all of the chipboard. We've put part of it in here. We've put part of it up there. And we've put another third of it actually up in the loft. We've had to just do it in sections, A, because it's super heavy, and B, because of lack of time. We've got to go out now. We wanted to get it inside so that it wasn't raining, and I wanted to use the tarp to then cover the insulation, just to kind of keep the worst of the rain off it. Obviously it doesn't hide it, and it doesn't keep it bone dry, but it helps a little bit. It just takes the edge off it. You can already see little particles, I think, flying around in the air. Yeah. Those are just the little bits that rub off the edges of it, which it's a horrible stuff to. There you go. Look at that, horrible stuff to cut. But you got to cut it down to fit it in between all the joists and all the rafters. So that's a fun job to look forward to. Just had the building inspector come round and sign everything off for the structural stage of things. I got to ask him a lot of questions, which was really handy, and he's cleared up a ton of stuff for me, which was very, very helpful. All of this netting doesn't need to be there, so all of that pain and heartache was a little bit of a waste. The reason it doesn't need to be there is because the thickness of that ceiling, the ceiling that's underneath all of this insulation here, we can check what the thickness of that is by looking down here and seeing under here. At that point there, you can see what the thickness of that ceiling is, and he said that that is thick enough for the fire regs. It's a fire regulation thing, so you need to have 30 minutes fire protection from the floor from the ceiling and the floor below. Because of that, we can stick all of the insulation straight down on top of it, because it's a warm roof, it's a warm floor, it's all within the thermal envelope of the building. So all of that can just go straight down. So I'm going to stop putting that netting down. It was a bane of my life anyway. So now I can just run all the insulation down. So the next few jobs will be to bring in the insulation, fill all of this in, because I've got it all there. And we've got the rest of it up out there still. Start running some cabling. I might actually run the cabling first and then stick the insulation on top, because I think that'll make it be easier on my hands. And I'll just leave lots of slack on the cable so that I don't have to worry about any of that. But it's really going to pick up the pace of the job for me now, not having to worry about all of this netting, not having to worry about overboarding everywhere, not having to worry about overboarding here and then dropping a service gap and then running all my cabling. That has saved me a ton of time. So I'm very pleased with that.